For our video project, I decided to do Sotos syndrome. On my first slide, I really wanted to focus on a few things. As you can see, there's Sotos Syndrome Support Association. This is a support group in Canada that is very useful and very well known. And this is a good resource for parents who have children with Sotos syndrome. Also, you can see the official parent source book on Sotos syndrome. And then the other picture is of a 6-month-old baby where you can really see the physical characteristics of Sotos syndrome. Sotos syndrome has several names. One of the common names is cerebral gigantism. This name is really just given to it because of the biggest characteristics is the size of the head and the weight of it. So it's kind of based on how abnormally large the head is at birth. The other name is Sotos sequence. The name was created based on the individual sequence of development compared to development growth in other children without Sotos syndrome when born. Sotos sequence just kind of follows a completely different developmental growth than normal children who don't have Sotos syndrome. Sotos syndrome is a rare genetic disorder characterized by disproportionate physical growth in the first few years of life. Children who are diagnosed with Sotos syndrome are larger at birth in all physical aspects. These infants are just taller, longer in length, and they're heavier because of the weight of their body, but also because of the weight of their abnormally large head, which is the really important part. The physical and developmental aspects. On this slide, I really wanted to show a picture of this infant. If you look, obviously if you look at it, you can see the size of the head is abnormally larger than an infant without Sotos syndrome, and just the body overall is just completely larger and fuller, especially taller for an infant. And then the other picture you can really see is his hands and his feet. They look almost adult-like, and they really tried to emphasize the length of this child's face to show you how different it is. The physical aspects in children diagnosed with Sotos syndrome vary in each individual. The most common characteristic, of course, is the size of the head, the forehead. They have a long and narrow face, and there's slanted and distance between the eyes. There's a very noticeable gap in between their eyes. And they have normally larger hands and feet. The developmental aspects of this syndrome also vary from child to child. This disorder goes along with mild to severe mental retardation. There are increased chances of delay in motor development, cognition, speech, hearing, kidney, and decreased muscle tone. With speech, there's speech impediments, there's stuttering. There's also behavioral problems that occur, which are shown from children who gain phobias and obsessions. The motor development is also a big problem because of decreased muscle tone, so they have lack of control of their body. In response to these specific delays, more problems can occur with speech problems. There's no specific treatment listed for Sotos syndrome. Parents may find medication to cure or decrease some of the symptoms, effects, but other times, children with Sotos syndrome will grow into their physical features into adulthood. There's no real treatment to cure Sotos syndrome to make it go away, but there's little things like interventionists to help cure or help a little bit as they grow older, communication problems and behavioral problems. And also with the lack of muscle tone, there's the help of physical therapy that can really make them stronger. Sotos syndrome is caused by mutation in the NSD1 gene. NSD1 gene has several functions, but mainly it provides instruction for creating a protein for normal developmental growth. Researchers are still unable to understand why the lack of this protein can cause such developmental stress and delay. So all NSD1, its big job is really just to set us on a normal path of development and growth, and that's the big problem that occurs, and that's why their physical characteristics are abnormal when they're born, because this protein wasn't created to set them on the normal sequence for this path. And the picture below shows the NSD1 gene right here, and then the outcomes, of course, have you seen in the pictures before. of what the child will look like. The prognosis of the syndrome. Most children diagnosed with Sotos syndrome will grow up to have a normal life expectancy. It's not proven or shown that children with Sotos syndrome should live a shorter life or die at an early age, with so much that occurs. The symptoms will lessen as the children grow into their features, having more control over their body and motor skills. The biggest problem is when they're younger, they have lack of muscle tone. So when they get older, and I hope that they go through physical therapy or some kind of therapy to make their muscles stronger, but they should grow more muscle and become stronger and be able to control their motor skills better. Growth rates slow down and begin to have a normal track record. Some children, though, never grow out of their clumsiness or lack of coordination. These are my resources. And then I really wanted to show you guys a poster that I made about the most interesting things I found out about this syndrome. Well, the prevalence is 1 in 10,000 to 14,000 infants, but there are children who go undiagnosed, so the number can vary. Also, when I was studying about if it was hereditary or not, I noticed that it said it was, and then the NSD1 gene said that it's not, and that it occurs a random mutation, which causes this. So I think that I don't really know what to believe on if it's hereditary or not. With the treatment case, I think that therapy is a really important thing, especially physical therapy for their muscles. And I think interventionists for behavioral problems and therapists are really good for the families as a really good support. I also thought it was really interesting that when I was studying, reading about the infants, is how much they struggle. They struggle right after they're born. They might even stay in the hospital for a few months because their bodies aren't strong enough. Some of them suffer from jaundice, so they have to stay under lights for a certain amount of time to gain more pigment. And they just have a hard time feeding. It might have to be fed through a tube. So as younger age, they look physically grown up or older, but inside they're struggling to almost live as infants. Also, this syndrome reminds me of a growth spurt. I think it's kind of like a backward sequence to where the infants are born and they just have a growth spurt at such a young age to where they have all these physical characteristics that are popping up and they look so much older, but they're really just young infants who are still little babies. Overall, the biggest thing is the families. The families really need a support group because this syndrome doesn't just have one symptom. It has 5 or more or 7 or more. It's not just an easy thing to go through or get by with. So I think that support groups or even associations are really good because it's good to talk to people who are going through the same problems as you and find out their strategies, research and newsletters, and just get help from the community to help you go through this transition or help your child grow through Sotos syndrome. And that's about it. Thank you.